So I have made an app called Xharktank in which the entrepreneurs pitch their ideas and the investors can see all those pitches, can decide which pitch to put a counter offer to. And so let's see what I've made at the backend. So the port number I've used is 8081. My app is running at port 8081 and the database name is XharktankDB. I am using MongoDB as the database and Node.js for as the framework. So I've made this model, pitch model, as the database should know the schema according to which the pitch should get stored inside the database. So this is our schema for pitch, and it will contain entrepreneur, pitch title, pitch idea. All these would be of type string, and these all are mandatory fields. Same way, ask amount, equity, there will be number, again mandatory fields. Offers will be array type, and it will have default as an empty array, as while the entrepreneur creates the pitch, there would be no offer for that pitch. When the investor wants to create a counter offer for that pitch, then only the offer will have some value. So the offer is initially empty. Now we'll see the routes. So the routes we're having is pitches.js. So firstly we'll see this first endpoint. This endpoint has uh, the functionality of creating a pitch. So creating a pitch means posting the pitch inside that database, and we'll use post method for this. This is the body, and we are checking the data types, that the entrepreneur should be string, pitch title, idea should be string, ask amount and equity should be numeric. We'll run this asynchronously, as if we run this synchronously we'll get error, because storing the data inside the database and retrieving the data from the database, it may take some time. So uh, according to all these validations we mentioned here, we are going to validate our request body. If it gives any error, or if the data type of entrepreneur is not correct, or it is null, or the equity is less than 0, or it is greater than 100, then we have to return invalid request body. Otherwise we are going to save the pitch inside the database and return its id. So let's try and run this endpoint. So this is pitches endpoint, and this is the sample body. So let's try and run it. So I've run it and it's showing 201 created and it has returned its id. Let me save this id for future, as I'm going to be using it. Let's make some errors here. So now if I give this null string, let's see what happens here. It returns invalid request body. It's not working. So yeah, this endpoint is working fine for us. So now let's see what the next endpoint does. So the next endpoint is fetching a particular pitch from the database using pitch ID. So pitch ID will be passed in the URL itself. We are fetching the pitch ID from the URL of the request, and then we are finding that pitch inside our database. So if that pitch is not present inside the database for which the pitch ID we have passed on, then we'll return pitch not found. Otherwise we are going to return the pitch in our response according to this body, like ID, entrepreneur, pitch title, pitch idea, ask amount, equity and offers. So let's try and run this endpoint also. So we're getting the pitch ID. We have to mention appropriate pitch ID. This is the pitch ID I just created the pitch for, as I copied the pitch ID previously. So now I'm pasting it, and then let's try and return. It's returning me the pitch. And if I make up some ID, put any arbitrary ID here, let's see, it should return bad request. Yeah, 404 not found, pitch not found, as pitch was not present inside the database. So this endpoint is also working fine. Now let's see the next one. The next is for the investors to create a counter offer for a particular pitch. So we'll use post method for this, as the investor is making the counter offer. So that offer we have to store inside the database only. So Again, the body will contain some constraints, like the investor name should be in string, amount should be numeric, equity should be numeric, comment should be string also. Again, we are running this asynchronously. Pitch ID we are going to retrieve from the URL, we are passing it here, and then we are validating our request. So if any of this validation fails, or some more constraints we have added, like equity should be between 0 and 100, amount should be greater than 100, and investor cannot be null string. So all these, if any of this fails, we are going to return invalid request body. Otherwise, we are going to find the pitch for that particular pitch ID which we have mentioned in the URL. If pitch is not present inside the table, then also we are going to return pitch not found. Otherwise, we are going to create a new offer according to the body which we have given, with the user or the investor in this case has given. So we are going to generate an offer ID randomly, and then we are going to create a new value by pushing the offer given by the investor inside the offers array, and finding the particular pitch ID and then updating it by find by ID and update. And finally we'll return our pitch ID. So let's try and run this endpoint. So let me try this with some arbitrary, like make let me make it proper. So the body is right. Let me try and running it with some arbitrary pitch ID. Not found, pitch not found. It's giving pitch not found. And if I give it proper pitch ID, let me give it proper pitch ID and then run it. Yeah, it's created, offer has been created. And let me try giving it 1000 equity, then let's see what happens. It's giving invalid request body. So if I try to give like 2 offers to a particular pitch, then let's see if it happens or not. Yeah, it's happening. And now we can also see that these offers are appearing in our pitch body or not. Let's call this get endpoint for pitches. Let's pass proper pitch ID to this, then try. So we can see that these 2 offers, they are appearing, in our pitch body. So it means that this endpoint is working fine. So now let's move towards the next one. Next one is for the investors to see all the pitches from the most recent one to the least recent one. So this we are also implementing using get method. As we are getting something from the database, we are getting the result from the database, and we are implementing it using the find method and then sort. Sorting we are doing using ID, and -1 we are giving because we have to sort it in descending order according to ID. So then we are storing all the pitch inside the pitches into this pitch response, and it will be stored in this form only: pitch ID, entrepreneur, pitch title, idea, ask amount, equity, and then offers. And then we are returning this pitches response. So let's try and run this endpoint. So if, yeah, this is the endpoint, let's try and run it. So our database just had 1 pitch, so it's returning that particular pitch. Let's try and give one more pitch. So if I give it name here, give it this, let's change it that way, and let's create another pitch. Yeah, so pitch is created. Let's try and run that endpoint, like for getting all the pitches again. So let's try it. So you can see that I created this pitch just now. So the most recent one is appearing at the top. The least recent one in our case was this pitch. It's appearing at the bottom. So this endpoint is also working fine.